Hello, I'm Karen and welcome to part 2 of how to make my little Converse shoes or trainers, depending on which ones you want to make. If you've come to part 2 by accident, that's fine. Just stop the video and pop over to part 1. I'll put a link in the description box so that it's easy to find. And for those that have already been following, if you've actually got your two pieces, then excellent, well done. I've decided that for the top area of, I'm going to be working this area with the actual little buttonholes in. I didn't show you, did I? They are proper buttonholes. This bit was inspired by watching. I watched another video. I watched this lady. Her channel is called Cuco. I believe she's a Spanish lady. I didn't understand what she was actually saying because I don't speak Spanish. But actually, after watching her videos, it's I don't know. She shows you little things the same way that I do and uses a hook like I do. So I kind of understood what she was saying. When she was actually doing her buttonholes though, she did something that I found technically difficult. So I'm going to do mine slightly different because I just want it to be as easy as possible. So, but before we begin adding the sides, what we need to do is we need to get a contrasting piece of yarn. I'm using this delightful pink. And we need to mark the toe area of our slippers. So we find the centre, so you know that this is your centre point, and come down and find the first stitch there, and then count 6. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll put my hook through there, and I'm just going to put my hook through the opposite side. Sometimes I get it right and sometimes I don't, so don't worry. But what we do is we count from that stitch that we've already counted, so we count back, because we actually want a total of 12, including the actual stitch that we're in. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I was actually slightly out by 1, so I'm just going to drop down 1 stitch. So now I've got my area, my toe area for the 12, and I'm going to get my yarn and pull it through to the opposite side. Now when your shoe is at this stage, it is very floppy, and so you just need to make sure that you're definitely correct, like I do with my other ones. Form yourself your little cross, and you can see if your cross is straight, you know that you're in the right place, even if the rest of your shoe seems a little bit wonky. This is the mark point, is so that we know where we're going to add our toes later. Okay. Now we're going to get the yarn that we actually want to work with. I'm going to make my magic loop, my casting on loop. Now to join on, we're actually going to join with a single crochet. So we don't go into the same space as the marker, we go to the space to the left of it. So we're going to cast on with a single crochet. Okay. Now, when we work all the way around, we're actually going to end up with a total of 20 stitches. Now, for those people that just want to work away and work to the other side, that's fine. But for those people that do actually like a written pattern to be able to follow, so it's exactly the same every single time, I'm going to go with my pattern. So we want a total of 20. And this is one of the reasons why I've left this tail area in here. You'll see in a minute. So that's 1. Oh, hang on. I'm going to do my second stitch. Don't pull this end tight just yet. We're going to work that area, where we've cast on. We need to work back into that stitch. Don't pull that tight. Right. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now the reason why I told you not to do to sew this in is because then you know not to work in that where you slip stitch at the end. You don't want to work in that area, you want to go over that. So we've got 9, so we're going to go to the side of that to make number 10. Okay, so that's our 10th stitch there. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, sorry, 17, 18, 19 and 20. And that's it. We can remove the marker now. We don't need that. We don't want extra tails getting in the way. We've already got enough. Now when you're doing this area, you want to keep your stitches quite nice and tight. Not too tight, but quite reasonable. So now we're going to work back again now. So we're going to go on to round 2, which is chain 3, 1, 2, 3, turn. We don't work into this area here. So when I say skip one, I mean skip that one there and single crochet into the next area. Okay, so we're going to skip one and single crochet into the next 17. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, sorry, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 and 17. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, skip one, and we want to slip stitch into the next, which is actually the cast on space. So we're going to slip stitch into there. Now we can pull that a little bit tighter. Chain, so that's the end of round 2, and you've actually got your 2 lace holes or button holes already formed. Round 3, chain 1, turn, skip one of the chain and slip stitch into the next 2. So that's 1 and 2, and that gives us that nice shape for our buttonhole. Single crochet in the next 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And when you're coming back, this buttonhole here looks like some of your stitch work, so don't be alarmed by that. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, skip one, and we're going to slip stitch into this part here. We're not going into the actual buttonhole, we're still going into that stitch there at the side of it. We'll slip stitch there. Okay, so that's the end of round 3. So on round 3 we've got 1, 2, 3 lace holes or buttonholes. Round 4, chain 1, turn, skip one of the chain and slip stitch into the next 2. So that's 1 and 2. I just like to just go underneath like one loop when I do that. Single crochet in the next 15. No, I'm fibbing, it's not. Single crochet in the next 13. I've done into there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 and 13. And now we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, skip the next one and slip stitch into the next one just there. Okay, it does look a little bit confusing where you've actually done your slip stitching back, so I said it does look like you've got more stitches to work into. And then this is the actual final round of this, because we've now formed all of our buttonholes. Chain 1, turn, skip one of the chain, slip stitch into the next 2, so that's 1, oops, 2, and then to neaten up this edge here we're going to slip stitch all the way back, so that's slip stitch in the next 13, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 and 13. Now I discovered if I cast off there and when I was sewing in it left me a hole, so we need just to slip stitch into the chain area of the lace hole just there, and that's it. We're going to cut off the yarn, pull that through, and now we've got the actual base with the actual side area now there with our buttonholes. And what I like to do is I like to get my second piece and I like to work up this area again, and then I do all my sewing in together. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you with sewing in just on the just on my lilac areas, just so that you can be aware when you're actually sewing in how nice you can actually do it. So if we come through and we go pull our yarn through to the other side, that's neatened up that area there. And then what we're going to do is we're just, now it's nice and floppy because it just is at this stage, I'm just going to work the yarn into this top part there. When you're working through, make sure that you haven't come through the opposite side and left yourself a big stitch, because that is really upsetting when you look back at your work and you find that you've done that, because it's very difficult to undo that. So we're just going to just make sure that we're sewing that in nicely there, and come back on ourselves just to give that yarn the added security of not being able to come undone, because it's a lot harder to come undone when it's gone back upon itself. So we'll do that bit there, put that out of the way. And now when you go to sew in this bit here, you're really close next to your lace or your buttonhole, depending on what you're going to use them for. So what you want to do is, if you come down into the stitches that's right near the white and tuck underneath there before you come actually up into this area here, when you're pulling that through, let's get that tail bit through, be careful you don't pull that initial part too tight, otherwise you end up shrinking up this hole there, and then it makes it really hard to thread your laces. I did notice on some other patterns that they didn't make the actual proper lace holes, and and so it was really hard to thread the laces, and I thought, well, if it's hard for you as the actual crocheter to thread the lace holes, how hard is it going to be for the parent, or even if you're making these for a child, for them to use on their dolls or something? It's going to be really hard to redo the laces, so I wanted to make this be as easy as possible, which is one of the reasons why I chose to do the buttons, because I thought, well, if you've got a sibling that is helping get the baby dressed, ready to go out, the sibling can actually help by putting on their shoes, by being able to fasten a button, because the younger child learns how to do a button up before they can actually learn how to tie a shoelace. So the little buttons is I just love that, and I think, well, that'd be quite cool actually on grown-up shoes as well, because there's a lot of people out there that through various different reasons, I don't know, maybe somebody's been in the war, or they've had a stroke and they can only use one of their arms, and it's really hard to tie a shoelace that way around. But if you have something to button up, then you can participate more. So there is lots of pluses for having the buttons on this particular thing, even though that I normally I'm not a fan of sewing on buttons, partly because my daughter used to chew them off when she was little, and she used to scare me to death with broken bits of button in her mouth. But there we go. So at this stage, if you now get your slipper and you fold it in and you flop it over in half, it's exactly the same. Okay? So I'm going to leave this video right now. This is the stage that we're at, and I'm going to go and finish my other one, so I've got two exactly the same, and then I will join you in part 3. Part 3, we're actually going to be making the toe and the tongue area, and then from there we will move on to part 4. So thank you for watching, thank you for liking, thank you for subscribing, thank you for coming along these lovely journeys with me. See you later in part 3.